I get very argumentative and with people that think politicians and politics solve problems. You know, I'm very skeptical of all political movement. I mean, my study of history is politics just create problems over and over and over. And then sometimes we solve them with technology. Technology can also create problems, clearly, but we do seem to solve things with technology in a way that politics just doesn't do. I mean, I guess you could argue that diplomacy sometimes calms things down, but you know, it's just people fighting over stuff and then trying to create all of these different ideological constructs to justify why they deserve the stuff and you don't, basically. So
I mean, that would be the better solution, right? Because think about all the big problems we've had. Like people thought we're going to run out of food or whatever, but you know, technology, you know, people thought, you know, all these things that were these challenges, like, oh, you need clothing and technology and the loom. And then, you know, you get these advances that allow, you know, in many respects, we all live like better than emperors did 2,000 years ago, right? You know, in many respects, the medical care, the dental care,
and it's true almost
running
every
water.
generation. You know, obviously it's with some regression, but in general, the overall theme is, we live like actual royalty compared to people of the past.
And so if we stopped with the control and the violence, and to some extent, don't get me wrong, there have been a lot of good technological advances through warfare historically.
Yes,
but it doesn't mean it has to be because that's the way it was.
Exactly. You know?
Yeah,
that's another point. And like, sure, we have made, there's this quickening effect war has on technological innovation, but there's this whole thing of the seen and the unseen, right? It's like, well, we don't know that means war makes technology emerge more quickly. We don't know what it's like to not have war and see what technology emerges under that paradigm. So yeah, I hear that a lot. And of course, warfare engenders a lot of necessity very quickly when people are trying to survive. But I'm just betting on human freedom, man. I feel like that would just create so much more abundance for everyone.
Definitely. And I think, you know, you look at, you know, shows like this and you look at how the breakdown of the mainstream media and people getting like news sources from different voices, and then they can decide what they think is BS or what makes sense or what's real. The more you're seeing that, I think a lot of the crap these people are trying to pull on us, it's not working. I think they wanted a central bank digital currency. I think they've all but given up on it. You know, Powell and his like they realized that people weren't having it, and now they're trying to do, in my mind, this backdoor CBDCs with the Genius Act, the stablecoin bill, where they can get the programmability and the data and get it in the deposit. So I think they're trying to find back ways, but like we go out on shows and we talk about it. Hey, well, you know, these are in the bills and this is how it's happening, and people start to learn. And so a lot of their traditional control mechanisms are breaking down. And so there's positive stuff. I mean, I'm always kind of optimistic about the future that we'll get through this, you know, and, you know, the dollar system might collapse, or, you know, currency systems collapse all the time. It collapsed in 1971. It collapsed in 1933. I mean, my dad was born, 39, so he wasn't around for 33. But he's seen basically 2 collapses of the global economic system in his lifetime. You know, it happens, and so we're due for one right now, and I think that's what we're seeing, and we can get through it. But hopefully, we don't get through it with World War I or a World War II. And this comes back to the beginning where I said the difference now is I thought we'd already have probably hit that point, but we're in the nuclear age, and so these wars are being fought much more cyber, drones, proxy wars. But we're more or less in a sort of a geopolitical, geoeconomic war right now with Russia and China. And I think Trump's trying to like maybe tamp down some of the war rhetoric, but you know, he's tamping up the economic rhetoric, and they've been tamping it up too. So this is the world we're heading into, and where it's all going to work out, I don't know. But I do know that there is, like I said, the solution to all of these problems, like come back to the monetary problem we're talking about, right? Which is a way to kind of measure, preserve wealth that's kind of incorruptible, uninflatable, you know,
hyperportable,
hyperconsumable, all of those things. And the only way it's going to work and achieve all those things is one way, if people believe in it, right? And that's the fundamental essence of it. Why why did gold work more or less for thousands of years? Well, people could have said, silver, but then, well, silver, you have to carry a lot more of it. It's not, but platinum, that's, about as common as gold. It's actually less common than gold. Why is platinum at 900, gold's at 3,000? It's the trust, it's the belief, right? Like platinum should be way more valuable than gold. Gold has a monetary premium to it, and and that monetary premium is just the acceptance of it.
Yes.
By all of us.
Yeah.
And if people accept Bitcoin and start thinking in terms of Bitcoin and Bitcoin becomes looked at as a true store of wealth, then I think it holds out that promise. But it's ultimately the technology, but it's also ultimately us. And do we believe it or not?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And then the only slight caveat for me is like the word belief is just a little bit ambiguous, where it sounds like it's purely subjective. We choose whatever we want, but like clearly that's not the case, right? You can't make bananas money because, well, the stock to flow ratio is terrible basically, and they're consumable and they're not durable. Like they don't have these properties. So
well, the properties are great, but there's other things with good properties.
To try and like summarize that, it's like belief coalesces, subjective belief coalesces around objective properties.
Yes,
basically.
Yes,
so like which tool is best for the job? That's the one people are going to believe in over time.
Much better said. I agree. And one key in that is it's got to be that collective belief. But there's a reason why, right? There's just like there was a reason why they picked gold. Like I said, you could. That was the original reason why there was like a premium to gold, silver relative to its natural occurrence. So silver is about 8 times more common in the Earth's crust than gold. So you'd think like 8 to 1 would be a good ratio, but historically it was closer to 15 to 1.
Right.
It's not anywhere near that now. And that was really because of its portability.
Yes.
Because with silver, instead of needing to carry this much, you could have a pocket. And so Bitcoin has those properties, those objective properties. But then at the same time, you also need kind of that collective acceptance.
Of it, well, that's a great point. Yeah, people have to. This is why we often say it's the pain that's going to orange pill more people than anyone, right? Like people need to feel the problem before they'll identify the solution, right? It's not like we sit here and we can educate people. And, it helps for some people, right? A lot of people get orange pilled and they learn about Bitcoin through reading or listening to podcasts, whatever it may be. But the vast majority of people, it seems to me, move as a result of pain, right? There's that saying that you don't change until the pain of not changing becomes greater than, right? The pain of not changing is less than the pain of staying the same, right? So you have to actually change.
Yeah.
And so all these things you're talking about, the inflation, the potential for hot wars, the capital controls that come along with that, financial repression that's often used. I think all these things over time are just going to be the pain that pushes people to seek out which tool is best for the job or best for the problem they're trying to solve for themselves in that moment. And that it's that long process that's probably gradual, just like he said about bankruptcy. It's gradual for a while, but then there's going to be acute shocks where it's sudden, right? There's I forgot the saying now. Or there's weeks where decades happen.
Yeah.
What is that saying? He said.
There's some weeks where more happens than in a decade, maybe. Is
Exactly.
the saying. But I mean, or look at evolution, where there's these little changes, and then you see, like in the fossil record, like. Something.
There's decades where nothing happens, and then weeks where decades happen. I think was something like that.
Okay, there you go. That sounds more eloquent.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. You're totally right. And you mentioned financial repression, which we didn't get into, which I think is also probably coming. Which and when you look at Bitcoin and your own keys, your own cheese, as you said, like, okay, if the government starts using, stable coins get pushed really hard, and then there's controls put over something where. Well, that's what they're going to need to do, because that's how you keep that currency. It's like China, right? Like you can't, like it's like something like 50,000 US dollars the average Chinese person can take out of the country, out of yuan or the RMB on a yearly basis or something. And they come here and they spend all this money because that's all to do with it, but it can only do it like that amount or whatever it is. or to get away with it, they might buy real estate because or they buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The Chinese own a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Even though it's illegal there. They own a lot of gold.
They mine a lot of Bitcoin too, even though it's illegal there.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got all of these things kind of in the ether going on. It's interesting, fascinating times. There's a lot of stuff moving quickly, but I do think we're getting to one of those points where maybe it's like there's going to be a year where more happens than in like 5 decades as far as like a monetary shift that just occurs. And people will look back on it and say, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
We're now in a totally different world, just like happened in 1933.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.